Saga Swamp Thing, number 30, cover date November 1984. Pencils by Steve Bissett. The cover inks are by John Tolliman, but the issue inks are by Alfredo Alcala, who I always liked his work growing up reading comics in the 70s and 80s. Underrated guy. So, in the previous issue, it was revealed that Anton Arcane, Swamp Thing's arch nemesis, Abigail's uncle, has returned from the dead. So, after revealing himself, next, using Matt Cable's powers, possessing his body using his powers, he sends out waves of what you would call like negative energy or evil. And then you see this one scene where this young man finds a sleeping wino and he has a box of matches, and that's how it ends. And then this woman decides to say forget it, and grabs a old cast iron pan that her husband's too cheap to replace. So like she's gonna like kill him with it. And all these little segments are like this cat decides that the baby's crib is a warm place to sit. This guide dog attacks its master. There's a birth and a farm of something really hideous. And all this negative energy you can just see emanate from the house. Abigail is like horrified. And here's Anton Arcane, I'm going to call him just to make it simpler, being held down by those undead beings. So he decides, he does the recap, like how he got away, because last time you saw him, he was dead and he was killed. And he says that he died, his soul went straight to hell, and he was there, they were about to drag him down, but he was able to escape, come back to our world, but then he saw that his body was decayed, so he had no physical body, so no host to go into. And then explains how he found Matt and Abigail in Louisiana, and how Matt has always had these strong superpowers, but he wasted them on creating like little, like, I guess, creating like women out of thin air, because him and Abigail weren't getting along. So I guess he was creating his own harem. And she's like, I don't want to hear about it anymore. He goes, oh, yes, you are going to hear about it. So Anton Arcane is like enjoying the psychological terror that he's giving his niece, Abigail. And so he says, I just sat here and watched and waited. And this is a recap of a scene that was in an early issue of Swamp Thing where Matt recreates, like, fills out Abigail's body, and you can see Anton Arcane is just sitting here. And then he talks about how he set things in motion. He set things in motion to the Monkey King, released into this world. This is issues 22, 23, and 24. And then the car crash, and how he entered Matt Cable's body as a fly, and now he's taking it over. And he says, I have Matt's power. I am Arcane. Basically, I'm going to do what I want. And then her body gets taken down somewhere. Then they cut back, and this sister is talking about how she has to take care of her invalid sister, but she remembers how her invalid sister used to torture her. These two kids decide to take the new kitten they were given and put in the microwave, which for the 80s is pretty kind of hardcore, because this issue, after not getting the Comics Code Authority approval, got the Comics Code approval. I think it might have been because he explained that Matt had only been in, like, Anton Arcane hadn't been there all along. I don't know why, but all of a sudden this issue they decided it was okay. And then they talk about how this caged piranhas ate each other, then they ate themselves. Then at this time they were teasing Crisis on Infinite Earths, the first Crisis, like 40 years ago. And here's the Monitor, and they're like noting that all these waves of energy are coming out, and the Monitor's like, we wait. So usually what happens when you have these crossovers is that the writers are told, you got to fit this into the crossover somehow. So, but then the writers are like, listen, I don't want to like change my story. So they'll do like a story that kind of sort of fits into the overall crossover, but they really don't like it because it screws up their storytelling. So, but here it's just done one page. So this adds to the other little appearances that of the Monitor, at least, his hands and the ship and his assistant that were going on in other DC books. Then they cut to Arkham Asylum. Woodrow is saying it's coming out of the bayou, and these workers there are talking about how everybody there, all the patients there are acting up. And this one guy says, "Hey, you want something really scary?" The Joker stopped laughing. So even the Joker is like scared about what's happening, which goes to tell you like how evil it is, where even the Joker's like freaked out. And then Arcane flies out and causes it to snow. And then here you have the splash page. This is kind of interesting because you have the splash page here. Halo flies, but I guess they're required to say Swamp Thing created by Lin Wein and Bernie Wrightson. So here's just a one panel image of Swamp Thing walking through the snow, and they have that thing, I guess, is a requirement. So that's weird. They put it like 15, 16 pages in. So Swamp Thing is walking through the snow, and all of a sudden you hear Holland, and you see a blast of energy that almost nails Swamp Thing. And then Swamp Thing looks up and says, "Matt?" And he goes, "Not Matt, guess again." And he goes, "Arcane." And he's like, "Yeah, Arcane." He's like, "I'm gonna finally get my revenge on this guy." And he's doing that villain monologuing thing, and he's like, "Hey, look, if you're so powerful, then why don't you sit here and talk?" And he's like, "No, because I want you to do one last clumsy dance." And he goes, "Then kill me now if you can. I will not dance for you." And he says, "I have Abigail." And he just has that look on his face like, damn it. And he's going to go to rescue Abigail. And then they cut back. Sally Parks is with this sailor. And all these are the people that were the co-workers of Matt Cable and Black River Corporations. Then they show their sister again, the one that was, you could tell had a beef with her invalid sister. And you can see, I'm going to go take a walk and see if I think what's in the mess in the bedroom. And one of the last of the four co-workers is out. He's got a car picking up women. And they say, and everything bad within 200 miles is walking to Houma, Louisiana. So Swamp Thing approaches, and I love this storytelling because this is all wordless. He approaches the house. Anton Arcane like levitates back. Swamp Thing goes to the house, enters the house. It's really spooky. He sees Abigail, picks her up. And the end page is, how long has she been, and something guess, how long has she been dead? So now you're like, okay, Anton Arcane is calling all this evil within hundreds of miles. Abigail's dead. And so you set the perfect, like, how are they going to get out of this one? The art here is great. As I said, Stephen Bissett's doing wonderful pencils. I like Alfredo Alcala's inks. They're not too dissimilar from John Totalbaum, but it is a different look. But again, just great storytelling and great setting up, where just enough of the DC universe to kind of keep it with the continuity and to show impact, but not too much. It's almost like its own thing. And then the next issue is part 3 of this arc. It has a final battle between Swamp Thing and Anton Arcane. And there's a part 4, a 4th issue. And we'll talk about that then. Thanks.